Okay. Anna, can you hear me? Hello? Okay, great. Thanks, Anna. Let's see the Hangouts link. Let's see. Okay, hello everybody. It's Alan here, and we'll just wait another 2 minutes and then we'll start. Thanks for your patience. All right, hi everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I hope everybody can hear me. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Let me try that here. Okay. Let's see here. And just testing out the chat message here. Okay, 1 minute countdown. We're just testing the chat messages here. Okay. Good. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, great. I can now see the chat room here. Hi, Anna. Hi, Federico. And let me say hello here. Chat. Excellent. So thank you for tuning in. And I think we will start with a brief presentation about what we're doing with natural capital and with tree. So I hope you can all see my screen here. This is a photograph of the jungles of Borneo, where I was a few weeks ago at the World Islamic Economic Forum to introduce the concept of natural capital blockchain currencies. So what is natural capital is the first question. And it's all the ecosystems that make life possible on Earth. We can see it right here in this beautiful jungle. You can see the river there and trees that produce oxygen and everything we need to live. So natural capital is essentially all the value that we get from the ecosystems that make life possible on Earth. And right now is a very special time. Astronauts who are able to go into outer space and look back at Earth all had a very special feeling. Seeing this planet very vulnerable, very small, in the dark expanse of space. And right now is a time when we need to come together to protect our planet. We're threatened by climate change and by an escalating ecological crisis. And the root cause is very simple, though. It's something that we can address. So here's the top problem. The largest source of carbon emissions, sadly, is the destruction of rainforests. Stopping rainforest destruction would be the equivalent of taking all cars off the road for the next 10 years. There's another wonderful ecosystem here, which is the basis of all of life on Earth, our oceans. Oceans are responsible for 60% of the oxygen we breathe and 83% of the carbon sequestration, so more than all the forests combined. Amazingly, half of that is concentrated in shorelines, where this tree plays a vital role. This is a mangrove tree, and it grows in salt water. And it's a keystone species that enables the entire shoreline to function well. So it protects the shoreline, first of all, from flooding, from storms, and then as well filters the water runoff so that seagrasses and coral reefs live. And this together provides the most powerful carbon sequestration and storage system in the world, responsible for a tremendous part of this blue carbon engine. Now, sadly, when you destroy mangroves, the entire ecosystem collapses. Here's a photo of a pagoda in Burma. You can see it's sticking out of the sea, and it was once surrounded by a mangrove forest. When the mangroves go, the entire ecosystem starts to degrade. Water essentially encroached upon the land, and instead of being able to grow rice on that land as they had planned, now there's no more rice fields, no more temple, and no more forest, and no more fish as well, because all the runoff has smothered the coral reefs and makes life very difficult for marine life. But we can stop this. And this is what we've done with our tree coin. Essentially, one tree coin is a digital token that's actually protecting a living mangrove tree in Tor Heyerdahl Climate Park, planted on 1 square meter. And you can visit the park. I've visited twice now. It's about 6 hours drive from Yangon. You can find it on Google Maps as well. And so far, 3.5 million trees have been restored out of an 8 million plan in the future. We've started to see this ecosystem come back. This is a photo a ranger took of an elephant who, well, the whole family of wild elephants have been coming back. So that's a really good sign that this biodiversity of this precious ecosystem is actually coming back. And that's amazing for an ecosystem where 84% of the mangroves were destroyed. The project is backed by carbon credits. And right now there is an application in the final stages for the verified carbon standard. Once that VCS application is approved, the first official verified carbon units will then vest, starting with when the mangroves were first restored in 2015. Half of the carbon credits are then shared with local communities so that the trees are worth more alive than dead. And the other half are given to tree investors. To invest, you can just look for tree issued by Worldview. That's the NGO that's responsible for the project. And you can get Earth Positive with as little as a single tree and $1, right? Each tree sequesters 1 ton of CO2 in 20 years. And the average human being on Earth, most of us probably would be somewhere between 10 to 30 tons per year in terms of our emissions. The average American is about 20 tons. And the amazing thing is, for about the price of an iPhone, less than 10,000 trees actually, you can invest in an ecosystem on the other side of the world that actually sequesters more CO2 than you emit. And that's a pretty amazing thing. And this forest, of course, keeps on growing. We've also turned this into a currency, so you can buy and sell tree against other major currencies. And we've established a liquidity buffer of 10% of the cash raised that allows us to make markets on tree 24/7. Okay. Now, what tree is really a new language for value exchange. That's really the definition of what a currency is. A currency is a unit of account. It's a medium for exchange and a store of value, but it's really a language. And the question is, what do you value, right? And we've seen now a new breed of currencies emerge, such as solar coin, that are I call that a currency with purpose. And what's amazing, SolarCoin founder Nick Gogarty and also Liquid chief strategist is working on a network theory of value of currency, that each person who recognizes, oh my God, SolarCoin actually, there's value in that. You know what? I will accept that as a means of payment. Actually adds $1,000 to the value of the overall network, right? Now you can see Bitcoin, that number is quite a bit bigger. Right now it's probably significantly above 3,000. But the point is that everyone who recognizes that something has value is part of this community, and that there is this community dimension of money. And what's vital here is to actually spark the network effects of currency. Currency, in a way, is very much like, say, a telephone or Facebook, right? The bigger the community that supports it, the more valuable that is. Interestingly, in the case of Tree, the carbon credit collateral backing Tree gives it an underlying value. So, for example, each tree sequesters 1 ton of CO2. We give half to local communities, half to investors. So that means about 500 kilograms per tree. And if this project achieves a premium price of $10 per ton for the carbon credits it sells, then in 20 years, the collateral backing that tree will be worth $5, right? So that's kind of a nice, very nice IRR. But what's more interesting is if our community of tree holders grows to beyond 100,000 people, then actually the network effects of value are actually much bigger than even the collateral backing that. So that's another really interesting perspective on currency. So we're working on building community and connecting with partners. We're working on a launch this week, actually, of a project called Liquid, and it is an investment app for good. And we're working with a number of different partners, including 8 Inc., and you'll see a website coming up very soon, as well as an Android and iOS app where you can actually pledge to be Earth positive, and with a click of a button, restore a vital ecosystem. We're also working closely with Wonderfruit Festival, and that is starting on the 14th this week. So many of us are gathering there. Wonderfruit has paid many of their artists and trees, and you can buy Wonderfruit tickets as well with trees at a discount. So that's another very important partner that we're working with. Furthermore, we're working with Viridium, which is an effort started by Todd Lemons, an ecosystems pioneer and eco-hero, who really was the first person who developed a carbon accounting system to prevent deforestation. So he's really the grandfather of REDD+. And Viridium has been set up by Todd and has been supported by Consensus and a number of other significant luminaries, including several Ethereum founders. And Liquid is proud to be part of this alliance and will power the Viridium Natural Capital Marketplace. And here's a video where Joe Lubin of Consensus discusses Viridium and the implication. And I'll share this link, and you guys can press on the video and check it out. But you can see viridium.io for more information there, including the video as well. So, in summary, let's spark a grassroots movement to get Earth positive. We can do this 1 tree at a time. We're all empowered to make a change. And you can find out more information at treevolution.com. And soon we'll launch the Liquid Blue website as well. Okay. So let me go back to the chat window now and see if there are any questions from anyone. Great. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I will also suggest that you join our Tree Facebook page, where we have a pretty active community. And there are quite a lot of nice discussions going on there. Okay, so I have a question here from Federico. How do carbon rights work economically? That's a good question. Carbon credit markets are quite complex, and there are voluntary markets as well as compliance markets for carbon credits. And they work in slightly different ways, but essentially the way that carbon credits work is that if you show that, let's say, protecting a rainforest from destruction or mangrove forest, the ability to sequester carbon dioxide, and it qualifies under a net additionality filter, which means that if you didn't take action, that carbon mitigation would not have occurred. Then there's the possibility to apply for some kind of a carbon credit standard. There are a number of different standards there, but about 70% of the voluntary carbon market is going through the verified carbon standard, the VCS, which is the project that we are, which is the standard that we're using for this mangrove project. And essentially scientists do a baseline study to look at, okay, what is the impact of the mangrove restoration activity? If the restoration goes according to plan, how much carbon will be sequestered over the next 20 years? And then essentially the project is audited every year. Satellite imagery is looked at and scrutinized to a single pixel. So if there's any trees that are missing, for example, that's subtracted from the carbon budget. And then, at the end of the year, there would be a net carbon credit amount that would be essentially made available in the registry of the project manager. And the major registries there are now Market and APX. And these carbon credits then are like wine vintages. They have a year when that offset occurred and a serial number. And then a company that has pledged to be carbon neutral, let's take Google, for example, would be able to say, you know what, we will buy these carbon credits and we will pay you $12 a ton per carbon credit, for example. That's the average budget that Google uses for its own carbon offset programs. And of course, the prices for carbon credits vary tremendously. Carbon credit markets collapsed due to a number of reasons. And, carbon credits traded as low as, sort of $1. Sort of average carbon credit forestry prices are closer to $3, whereas forest replanting project carbon credits averaged around $7.50 last year, according to this forestry survey report. And premium projects can have carbon credit prices of $10 and higher. And in this particular case, the land rights given to the project manager worldview stipulate that half of the carbon credits will be used for community development. So that's kind of how the economics work there. So I hope, Federico, that I answered your question about how carbon rights work economically. There's a price for carbon credits that is determined not only by how much carbon is taken out by a particular project, but also by the co-benefits of a project. So for example, if a project is really well managed and has great community development angles, and many co-benefits beyond carbon sequestration, typically a project like that will trade at a premium price to projects that perhaps only produce carbon offsets but don't do much more. Okay. I have a question here from Anna. I don't see tree on CoinMarketCap. How can I track the price evolution and where can I trade it? Okay. Very good question. We have not yet officially launched Tree outside of the Liquet ecosystem. And so right now, Tree is only available on Liquet Wallet, and it's essentially a pre-ICO price of $1 per coin. We are now working on a series of crowd-fundraising events to raise more capital for Worldview. So their budget is, they need to have about $2 million to expand for next year, and a total budget of about, close to $6 million to finish the project. So we're working on an ICO where the token will be most likely an ERC20 token using the Ethereum blockchain, which would make that token compatible in different Ethereum wallets as well. And this would also mean setting up an entire ecosystem around this. So the team right now we're putting together, and the advisors, and we will work with Viridium on this as well. So Todd Lemons has kindly agreed to be an advisor for the project, and so has John Lulich of Consensus. So it's quite an amazing team of people coming together for this. And once we put everything into this public forum with official white paper and legal review and so on, it'll be a public launch, and then the coin will be listed on CoinMarketCap, hopefully, and hopefully traded on other exchanges as well. So here's basically an ability for Liquet wallet holders to get access to a pre-ICO coin before, hopefully we will launch an ICO that reflects the true value of this particular coin. So I should also mention, in terms of pricing, why is the price $1? The price is $1 because it costs $1 to put to restore the mangroves, right? So the actual planting costs about 50 cents direct to the local communities, but planting doesn't make any sense unless you actually restore, unless you restore the ecosystem together with community development. And so 50 cents is allocated to community development. So you can see that basically the cost of running the project is $1 per tree. But that, of course, doesn't take into account the costs that are involved in setting up an ICO, in marketing it, in the legal reviews, and all the other things. So the ICO price will be significantly higher when that comes out. At that point in time when we ICO, probably we will wait until the VCS application has been approved, so that there's less certainty. And once that VCS is in place and there are verified carbon units, essentially we can say with much higher confidence that there is significant carbon value backing this, and the price of a tree coin should probably be closer to $2 or higher. So that's kind of, you know, the current pricing and expected future pricing. But, you know, everything depends on essentially how well the project executes. So to summarize, right now, it's a risky project in the sense that the validation hasn't been finished, but you know what, the trees have been planted, the audit has been going on for many months, the public review is there, all the comments have been addressed. So we're in the final stages of the approval of a project that is very, very high in quality, that's been approved personally by the head of the United Nations Environment Program, Eric Solheim, and others. So as far as mangrove restoration projects go, this is really a gold standard quality. So we expect that it'll go well, but there's uncertainty, and right now the investors are really benefiting from, you know, this sort of concept of risk return. So you should think of, if you're sort of buying tree coins, think of it as like buying a startup equity, right? It's risky, projects can fail, but there's also upside if the project is executed well. Okay, so hope that answers Anna's question. Thank you. And then a question from Jasper. Hi, and thanks for the AMA. Are you considering other platforms next to instead of Ethereum? Well, we are. You know, my personal my personal wish has been to actually use the solar coin blockchain as a colored coin, just like Like right now is using the Bitcoin colored coin, because obviously the solar coin blockchain is much more carbon friendly than Bitcoin. Its proof of stake is about 300 times more energy efficient, plus it really is an award system for solar energy, so you could argue that solar coin is probably sort of carbon positive. So that's a possibility to do that. We've looked at the Waves platform, and that's very attractive as well. It's also an energy efficient proof of stake coin. And right now the transaction fees are really low, right? So that really helps a lot as well. We really want this tree coin to be accessible by anyone. We want anyone who has a dollar, you know, anywhere to be able to, you know, buy it and send it freely. So Waves is quite attractive as well. And you know, of course, we're watching the blockchain space very carefully, although there's so much going on, so much exciting work. For example, you know, what we're seeing with some of the next generation, you know, hash graph architecture is really, really interesting. So we're starting to look into that, but mainly we've thought about Ethereum and solar coin and Waves at this point in time. Okay, so thank you, Jasper, for that question. And then another question from Federico. How are you related to governments and companies and the incentives they give for biomass? Okay, so gosh, I have not all explored any of the incentives around biomass. I know that Dr. Arne Fjørtoft, who's running Worldview and this project, is working on a plan to maximize natural capital around these communities, which involves doing, you know, aquaculture, you know, nipa, nectar harvesting, and bee honey harvesting, and other kinds of activities. And probably biomass harvesting would also play a role at some point. The mangrove forests, actually, in the future, after about 10 years, they will be thinned to improve their carbon sequestration, actually. And at that point in time, hopefully the local community would have developed some projects that would generate some biomass type energy. Although personally, I think that as an energy source, solar is the one to bet on. So my guess is by the time this happens in 10 years, solar energy will be the dominant form of energy, and biomass will, we won't be cultivating specifically plants for biomass. We might be using biomass waste. But in the short term, if you have any ideas, would be very very open to getting any suggestions, Federico. So sorry I couldn't give you any information about biomass. But in terms of how we're related to governments and companies, so there's some interesting work going on. Obviously, we've set up an alliance called Blue Life with Starboard, a leading water sports company, and Act GmbH in Germany. They're a leading water sports marketing and PR agency that helps essentially get corporate sponsorship for water sports events. And together, and with Worldview, together we are targeting large corporates for around sustainability. So looking at ocean plastics, climate, and biodiversity, and have been in discussions with quite a few of the large German corporates. So ACT is really leading this Blue Life Alliance, and hopefully this will be a global thing. But we're hoping that next year we will see some support from some of the larger brands. In terms of governments, an interesting thing happened. We have the Stockholm green energy, and actually I can let me just this is a Stockholm Green Finance Institute. I was going to say I can turn on the video so you guys can see me maybe, but then I'd have to figure this out. And we are going to do a regulatory sandbox with them. So the Swedish government will be looking at the tree coin structure, and hopefully that will then kind of have a formal status within Europe. Okay, so moving on, a couple more questions. There is Jasper. Are there tours through the forests? Will there be tourism or other usage? A very good question. People are visiting the mangrove forest and beautiful private white sand beach, several times a month. And there is significant potential for ecotourism. It is an area which is developing. So there's a hotel, a large hotel that's being built close to the mangrove plantation, and they actually tried to encroach upon it as well, but Worldview successfully defended it. And they're also planning to do mangrove tours and things like that. But we're seeing that stand-up paddleboarders are really seeing a lot of potential in that. It's an incredibly peaceful experience to SUP through these mangrove forests. It's so much nicer than being on a loud boat. So there's a whole community around Starboard, which is leading that. Water Trek, an NGO that's kind of grassroots NGO around stand-up paddleboard and ocean cleanup, has been organizing some tours and actually wrote an assessment report on the potential for tourism there. So there's significant potential there. You are all welcome to visit. So just Google Torheijdal Climate Park, check it out on Google, earth, and you'll see it's gorgeous. So there's a lot of potential for tourism there. And if you're interested, I can actually send you the report, and as well, a lot of people have posted on Facebook their visits, and so check out our Tree-Volution Facebook group, and some people can talk about their experiences. So thank you, Jasper. Next, we have Asia Works. Can you tell us a bit about the Wonder Fruit, which is coming up soon in Thailand? Cool. So, hey there, Asia Works team. Good to have you guys here. So, Wonder Fruit is a festival that is from the 14th to the 17th of December. So this coming week in Thailand. And it's a celebration of music, of arts, of life. And it has had an eco ethos since the beginning. And they have, last year, I worked with Wonder Fruit to craft their net positive pledge. They invested in 10,000 trees to make the festival climate positive. And they became such big believers in the tree coin and the wonderful project that it supports that they decided to support tree in a major way. So they're paying a number of their artists in trees, actually, instead of Thai baht or dollars. And they are organizing a number of pretty cool tree events. They have artists making installations to raise awareness, and very critically as well for Worldview, they're going to organize a mangrove happy hour every day, where they will invest in one tree for every single drink. And with 10,000 festival goers, that could be a lot of drinks and a lot of trees. And the beautiful thing that that Wonderful Fruit is doing is they're investing in those trees so that the drinks are the same price, but you get essentially you get a gift from Wonder Fruit where you can then claim those trees after the festival. So you'll get an email, and it'll actually track how many drinks you've had during happy hour, and then you'll get an invitation to actually get those free trees courtesy of Wonder Fruit in the new Licky Blue app. So check out more information at wonderfruit.com, and hope to see you guys on the field. I will be there with a big group from Licky around the world as well. Okay, now another question from Federico. Do you own the land or is it government properties? So the land is government property. There is a 30-year land lease, and this land lease involves the government as well as the local communities. And the terms of the land lease are that that essentially Worldview is able to lease the land for free for 30 years in return for doing the mangrove restoration work and allocation of carbon credits for local community development. So the government has been very supportive because these communities are incredibly impoverished. The average wage is about $3 a day if you're lucky to get a job in that area. And so they're really looking at what we're doing there, and everyone who's supporting this mangrove project, from donors to investors, as a really critical lifeline to developing very marginalized communities. So there's an official land lease, and Worldview has the legal rights to doing this restoration project, and it is illegal for anyone to deforest these mangroves. So there's significant legal protection here. Okay, so Anna's question here next. I understand that tree coin is the equivalent of one mangrove tree, but how much is it in carbon credits? In other words, to have one carbon credits, how how many trees do I buy? So a good question. So carbon credits, or let's say verified carbon units, are typically expressed in terms of tons, right? And one tree sequesters 1 ton of CO2 in 20 years. So you could sort of say, okay, one tree coin, sequesters one tree coin, splits the carbon credits with the local community. So you get a half a ton. So you could say one tree coin is like a half of a carbon credit. But if you really want to be technical about it, you should really say that, well, that half a carbon credit is accrues over 20 years. So technically, each tree coin, each mangrove sequesters about 25 kilos, therefore, of carbon credits to the investor every year. So in other words, if you wanted to get buy enough mangroves to sequester 1 ton of CO2 in a year, I guess that would be, what is that, 20, and then, yeah, that would be 20 trees. But then the cool thing is, if you buy these 20 mangrove trees, they actually sequester 1 ton every single year for not just 20 years, because they keep actually growing. So, hope that answers your question. But as a human being, if you sort of I did some calculations on the average human being. If you buy 200 mangrove trees, those mangrove trees, for $200, those mangrove trees will sequester more CO2 than you emit as the average global citizen. As an average American, is closer to like 800 trees. And if you travel a lot, like me, for example, my carbon footprint, I calculated, and it's really bad, actually. It's close to 80 tons, so 4 times as bad as the average American, because I fly a lot. So for me, that really means I have to have almost 4,000 trees in my forest. And what I've actually done is I like way more than 10 times net positive. So I have a lot more trees than 4,000 to make up for my carbon footprint. So hope that answers that. Okay, and oh, another question from Asia Works. Can you please explain Likke's work in role in Viridium? So sure. So yeah. So we've known Todd for some time. A good friend, James Dougal, introduced Todd Lemons, the Viridian founder, years ago, and Todd sort of taught me everything I know about carbon credits, and I had the idea. Hey, I was interested in Bitcoin back then. This was like, I think mid 2014, and thought, what, we should launch a natural capital backed token, carbon credit backed token, actually backed by blockchain. And then we kind of went our own ways, and then we did the first. We came back, and then we actually did a test structure of the Rimba Raya credits from Todd's Rimba Raya Biodiversity Reserve as the first natural capital backed token, carbon credit backed token, and showed it to the UN and kind of wrote about it. And then I basically pivoted towards mangroves, and Todd kind of set up his alliance, and then we came back together. And Likke's role is essentially to power the exchange for natural capital assets. So Viridium has a very bold vision to be a natural capital marketplace, and they're talking to some major corporates about using natural capital backed currency to trade with each other, right? So wouldn't it be cool if like an oil company bought jet fuel using tree coins? So that's the overall idea, that Likke will provide the exchange technology and provide liquidity as well. Okay, a question from Federico. What about using cannabis as forest in the future? Excellent. I love that. I have not studied cannabis forests, so we'll have to we'll have to investigate that. Thanks for that question. Okay, so I think that's it for questions, unless someone else has more. But thank you so much for your time and tuning in, and please join us at our tree.pollution website and on Facebook, and stay tuned to what we're doing with Liquid Blue. And it'll be really great to spark this as a global grassroots movement. Every person, every tree can, make a difference in this planet. So thank you guys very much, and please stay in touch. My email is just alan@liquid.com. That's ALAN @liquid.com. Happy to answer any questions, and we'll do a much better job as well of keeping everyone updated and posting information on our website. So we've put together teams of people to actually start a real communications campaign next year. So lots of exciting stuff on the horizon. So please stay in touch, and may the forest be with you. Okay. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Mark. All the best. Take care, everybody.